Hey guys, welcome back to Piston Productions. My name's Jacob. This week, if you don't know how to read, then this will be a surprise to you, but we're doing just some more camera stuff. Yeah, still don't know if you guys like this or not, but I guess we'll find out with video views and stuff. But anyways, what I want to talk about, once again, if you can't read titles, is what I started with filming, drifting, and all that stuff, and why I would recommend most of it to you. Not all of it, but I definitely recommend most of it to you. Okay, so first thing I actually started with was one of these bad boys, little Canon point and shoot. This one is an SX620HS. Doesn't have a flip up, doesn't have 4K, doesn't have high frame rate or anything like that. But for just general talking to the camera vlog kind of stuff, it's a really good camera for it. There are better versions of it, but like bang for buck, not too bad at all. I believe the guys over at DeBoss Garage, they use these forever. They might even still use them, and they're a huge channel. But the nice thing is, like, these are cheap. You can put them in places you wouldn't normally put them. Phrasing? Because they're so cheap. And if they get wrecked, it's not that big of a deal. And they got a fun little pop-up flash. But anyways, yeah, so I still use this on the odd occasion. I'll put it in a spot like behind a tire, somewhere I really don't care if it gets mangled. I do like these in general better than GoPros, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. After that, I got into what is known as basically the vlogging standard for the longest time. It might have changed now, but this is a Canon G7X. This is a Mark 1. Got a flip-up screen. I believe these do shoot some sort of 4K. The upgraded ones, the Mark 2 is actually a worthwhile upgrade, but the Mark 3, I found it didn't really seem like it was that much better. But the really nice thing about these is you actually do have some dial adjustment that you can start playing with. It does shoot in 60 frames per second, which is also nice. It's light, although it's heavier than the other one. It's got the flip-up screen, so you can do the whole vloggy thing. And actually, I shot my first round of Formula Drift ever on this camera. I was supposed to have the next camera we're going to talk about, but it didn't show up on time because I bought it on eBay really cheap, and it didn't show up, so I got to do Formula Drift Road Atlanta with this bad boy. It's actually funny because the next meeting, the next round, they made a point to mention, like, we want professional equipment out there. Nobody kicked me out or anything, but I did definitely had a lot of people looking at me wondering why the hell I'm trying to film with this little bad boy. But you can shoot drifting with it if you're just starting out filming motorsports or whatever, and you want a really simple camera just to learn, you know, kind of what shots to take, how to generally go about, you know, filming things. This is really not that bad. When you get into DSLR, mirrorless territory, things get a little more complicated. You have to start learning, you can still shoot it on all automatic, but you still need to understand ISO and white balance and stuff like that. This thing, you really don't need to know much. As long as you can press two buttons, you turn it on, and then hit the record button, you're pretty much good to go. I still use this camera. I might start using it a bit more for doing vlogging stuff, although Lumix has one of these that I kind of want to get, and we'll talk about Lumix stuff here in a minute. Sony makes these. Nikon might. I believe Fuji makes a version of these, although it's probably a little more than what you want. But realistically, the G7X Mark 1 or 2 is your best bet. They're a few $100 now. You can even get these used for like $200, $300 I've seen. All around great camera. I'd recommend anybody who's into filming at all has one of these style pocket cameras with the flip up for general vlogging and just, you know, I mean, like I said, you can put it in places you're not going to put a DSLR. Hey, phrasing! One really cool shot I got with this was the tie rod bending in Orlando, and we actually used that footage to then diagnose what was going on and then was able to fix the problem. So, awesome camera, highly recommend it. After this, though, now we're getting into some slightly more fun stuff. Need coffee. So as I said before, this was the next thing that I got, and this is Panasonic or Lumix GH4. This is an absolutely phenomenal camera. I bought this originally on the suggestion of Sam Nelvin, Drift Idiot. Sam has been excellent with helping me kind of through all my filming stuff, a lot of good advice, but this was the camera that he told me to pick up. And after doing a lot of research, I definitely agreed with him. Now, there are a lot of different and competing cameras that fall into this category. You know, you could talk about the Blackmagic 4K cinema camera, which doesn't have any sort of flip out screen. It does have some big advantages, also has some huge disadvantages. You could go Canon, you can go Sony. My opinion, I can break down the rest of them, but actually, you know what? Before I get into that, let's just talk about why I picked this, and then we'll talk about why I didn't pick the other ones. One, the recommendation. So consider this my recommendation to you to buy one of these. And the fact that it can shoot 96 frames a second. It can shoot 4K, 24 frames, so cinema style 4K. It's micro four thirds, so it is a crop sensor. It's a micro four thirds crop sensor as opposed to a traditional crop sensor. And the biggest benefit to that is when you start buying other lenses and you adapt it to this, you get an automatic zoom factor. So the downside is when you want to shoot something with either like a macro lens or really close up, getting other lenses to work with this is going to be a giant pain in the ass. But the upside is that if you move into something like if I were to get a 45-200 Canon lens and adapt it, it would probably look more like a 350, 375, maybe not a 400, but significantly larger than what it normally is. So
phrasing.
Nice.
You can buy a smaller zoom lens and have it act like a bigger zoom lens. Obviously, I know it's not full frame and all that stuff, but micro four thirds, in my opinion, is best bang for buck for a lot of different reasons, especially this GH4. It can do so much. There's so many cool features kind of hidden within it. It's just generally a great camera. You can go and look it up for yourself. You can just go out and buy one. I believe these things new are like $1,200 for just the body. Even with a kit lens, you're like $1,600. I have the 45-200 lens on this, and I've got a 14-45, which is on my other camera, which is recording right now. And that's the big brother to this one, which is the GH5. But we're talking about just kind of getting into it. We'll talk about the GH5 and maybe other cameras later on. So GH4, when you move into a mirrorless or DSLR, this is my recommendation. So why didn't I go with a Canon or a Sony? Let's start with Canon. Canon is one of the most popular choices out there, but the biggest thing is when you want to get into high frame rate, it's a big jump. You can definitely shoot with stuff like the 5D. You know what I mean? Realistically, if you want to go crazy, you can get into like a 1D, which is a gigantic camera, and I've seen video footage from it and it looks fantastic. And that's more in line when we talk about much higher end cameras. But starting out, you're probably looking at like a 5D in the Canon style things. Their ecosystem, I don't know it that well. The letters and numbers, this is easy, it's linear. The downside is you're not going to have the variable frame rate, getting into higher frame rate stuff. The color stuff and the autofocus is fantastic on it, but I really wanted to shoot slow-mo. I love slow-mo and drifting. If you watch this channel, you know that because I abuse the hell out of it. I need to actually shoot less of it. This thing shoots 96 frames a second, which is great looking slow motion. The color stuff in it is okay. The autofocus isn't amazing, but the battery life on these batteries it's great. It's I believe it's actually a little bit better than the Canon, which is nice because then you don't have to buy a ton of batteries. When you're out filming, you're not swapping up batteries all the time. And that's what's going to lead me into Sony stuff. So when I talk about wanting slow motion, obviously a lot of Sony cameras shoot 120 frames per second, and this only shoots 96. But the downside of those Sony cameras is they eat through batteries like crazy. I've also heard of a lot more Sonys breaking as opposed to maybe a Canon or a Panasonic, although people who have them, they do love them. And realistically, it was down to either a Sony or this for making my decision. This was a better buy value-wise. I believe I picked this up, my two lenses and a camera bag for, oh, I don't even know how much. It wasn't a lot. I want to say it was like $1,000 Canadian. But that swapping up batteries all the time, the batteries being expensive, that kind of was the nail in the coffin and why I didn't go the Sony route. I would totally agree with you if you went Sony or Canon, but this is my recommendation, so I'm telling you, GH4. I'm sure Nikon has something, but does anybody even really shoot video and Nikon? I don't know. I've had people ask me about like handy cams and stuff like that. I like to be able to swap out lenses. I like to be able to do a lot of different things. If you're just looking for one simple point and shoot solution, I would say the G7X, or you can start looking at the handy cam market, you know, like these things. I don't know much about them, I won't lie, because I've never really shopped for them, so I never researched them, so pointless knowledge for me to try and get. So that would be my kit for you, is to have a GH4, one or two lenses. The other thing, like, you can adapt to right here. This bad boy, this is, you probably can't see because the lighting's terrible, but this is like an old Canon, I can't remember what the FD mount, so we're talking like late 60s, early 70s, 50 millimeter, everything is manual on it, manual aperture, manual focus, so, and because the way I'm adapting it, none of that would work on here anyways, but it looks amazing. I love the shots that come from this lens, and I got this with this old Canon AV1 for $15 at a garage sale. I know it's probably worth a lot more than that. I think it's worth like 120 last time I checked. But either way, I adapted to it. Amazing footage. I'm sure I'll play some for you here. The other thing I would recommend, and I really need to get on this, is get some sort of protective filter for this. UV filter is usually what it's called, to keep your lenses from getting scratched. I didn't do that with this one, and I should have, and I've got one on the way. I kind of regret it because it's a little banged up now, but it makes for some cool lens flares later on. So for cameras, that's my recommendation. Let's just talk about gear quick. If you are getting into shooting B-roll, or even you can shoot these trackside, these counterweighted fly cam, riser, steady cam things, these are great. You don't need to get into a gimbal right away. Gimbals are great. They're expensive, obviously. They're a bit of a pain in the ass. And realistically, if you practice with one of these, you can actually do a lot more with one of these. Once again, the gimbal might be slightly steadier, but there's ways around that. These are really cheap. Like, I think brand new on Amazon, 45 bucks, 50 bucks. You can buy some really, really good quality ones that are carbon fiber with a lot of adjustments, like memory, or not memory settings, but like, you can, anyways, there are better versions of these that are more expensive. You can definitely get into one of those. I never did. I bought this off my buddy Colin from Misfits Drift for a bag of Cadbury eggs. Believe it or not, that's how cheap these are, Cadbury eggs. Next up is going to be a tripod. I don't shoot on a tripod a lot, but I still think you should get one because they're good to have in general. I got my first one not that long ago, and I only got it because a guy was going to throw it out at a camera store that I was at that very moment, and so I said I would take it. Anyways, I'm not a big fan of tripod footage. I think it looks kind of boring. It's like a pan after pan after pan. I like shooting things a little more risky. Upside, I can get some really neat shots. Downside, a lot of the shots that don't turn out look really, really bad. So get yourself a tripod, get them cheap, Neewer or Newer, whatever the hell they're called on Amazon. You can pick them up there. It's a good recommendation. Don't do the things I do. Okay. If you don't get a tripod, I would definitely recommend a monopod. These things are super cheap. I used to use one of these and one of these like Z-head things. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. You can use one of these and go like this, and then you put your camera on it, and then this is kind of how I would actually shoot. I would have my camera sticking up. Hang on one second. So it looked like this, and I kind of have it stuck into like my waistband. And I would actually have the strap going around my neck to anchor it, and that's kind of how I would shoot. It seems a little weird. It is a little weird. A lot of people looked at me strange, and then they saw some of the footage that I got like this, and then they still looked at me strange, but at least I had a reason. I shoot now with this, which looks really, really weird, and I'll probably talk about this in another video because I want to do one comparing the different drifting shots, either handheld with a monopod, with a tripod, or with one of these bad boys. But we'll talk about this in a different episode because it just looks like an old man cane. And the last thing that you're going to want to buy is a bag to carry all your gear in. This is what I used to shoot. Used to have. It's an Akuvar. Really simple bag. Nothing crazy. It was cool. I kind of outgrew it. It's a little worn out now. But one of these bags, that's all you need. Have a dedicated camera bag though. Spend 30, 40 bucks, buy one. The downside if you don't is that things are going to get banged up, things are going to get scratched, things are going to get lost. This way, keep chargers, keep batteries all in it, organize it. I like having batteries in the front pocket. That way when I'm filming, I can just sling it around, grab a battery, sling it into the camera, and then done. That's one recommendation. Make sure you find a camera bag that's got water bottle pockets in it, and hopefully a couple of different dividers. I find with camera bags, the ones that are like one big pocket, shit kind of bangs around. I like having layered pockets, then I can fit things in different spots. And anyways, get yourself a camera bag, make sure all your gear is in it. We'll talk about other things like unloading all your gear at the end of the day, stuff like that at a different time. But anyways, guys, that's my recommendation. That's what I would say you should be picking up, your starter bag for getting into filming drifting. Hopefully it's a good explanation as to why, but anyways, that's just my opinion. If you guys think something different, let me know in the comments below. Really like to hear what you guys maybe started with or what you're looking at buying. I really need to kind of activate my comment section more often. I always reply, so just leave me a line. What do you think? These good recommendations? Do you guys like this camera side of things when it comes to this channel? Should I just start another one completely? I don't know. You tell me. But thanks again, guys, for watching Everything Piston Productions. Make sure to check us out Instagram, Facebook. You're on YouTube. Check us out on all the things. Check out the Piston podcast. We recently had Ryan Sage on talking about the thing going on right now that we won't even talk about it. Make sure to check out Everything Piston Productions. New website is kind of up a little bit. Beta testing it. pistonheadproductions.ca or .com. I think we have both. So check that out, and we'll catch you guys next time. Hopefully that works. All right, take 2. Because the first time I didn't realize that my hard drives were causing a ton of noise, and I got to delete all of it. It's always a fun